didn't bring my thing up. Brought my lunch for tomorrow. I didn't bring my bag.
What we're gonna do with you. Please silence your phone. It's like the movie. Please silence your phones.
We should
And
put
you-
that sign up
your
on the screen
microphone.
first. Let's go.
When you first, or we getting versions of the superintendent? So get to the superintendent's report, we'll do you, then we'll let Bill go and then. So you have to be separate. No. Christopher. Oh, no, he can do it because our adoption is at the bottom. That's fine. He can go through your superintendent report, yes. Just waiting for a couple of people to be able to get in.
Yeah.
Again?
Yeah, if you're in the audience, you mute your mic, because that might be what the echo is. Or it could be, Vince. Everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, April 13th business meeting of the Board of Education. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice break. We're jumping right back into budget season. So we're going to start the meeting. I need a motion to move back at 0-291 through 0-293.
So moved.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. We'll jump to report of committees. We're going to go PTA, PTSA, and SEPTA. So I did see Mrs. Merle. Mrs. Merle, do you have a PTSA report?
No, just to report that our next meeting.
You cut off, Mrs. Merle. You either muted or got cut off.
I did remute myself. I'm sorry. Our next meeting is Monday the 19th, and we hope to see you everybody there, and hope everybody had a good break. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do not see PTA or SEPTA on. Isabella, I saw you somewhere. So we have our student report from Isabella Matos, who's the VP of Student Council. You could go ahead and unmute yourself, hon.
Okay, hi. So this is our monthly report for April. So starting off with Student Council, this month the Student Council is hosting a Spring Spirit Week from Monday, April 26th to Friday, April 30th. Each class club selected a dress-up theme and a song to go with that day. All class clubs are designing a class banner to go with their class theme. Banners will be on display in the main circle. The long-time tradition of voting for Mr. and Miss West Hempstead will be held during Spirit Week. Please follow the Student Council Instagram at rams_stuco for updates on all the fun stuff happening this month. So now moving on to Key Club. Key Club is hosting a food drive through the month of April for Nutrition Awareness Month in collaboration with Whitson's, which is our food service provider, at the high school. Donations can be brought to the high school main office. Then for yearbook, the yearbook is still available for purchase for students, staff, and community members. Time is running out, so people can purchase it online at jostens.com. Yearbooks will be available for pickup in June. An exact date will be finalized soon. And then for athletics, The boys varsity volleyball team currently has a record of 6-4. By Friday, the seeding for the playoffs will come out. The team could possibly host a home playoff match on Saturday, April 17th, or have a bye in the first round of the playoffs. The spring season for high school athletics begins on Thursday, April 22nd. All paperwork is due back to the high school nurse on Tuesday, April 20th. All information and the forms are on the high school website for athletics or can be picked up from the athletic office. And then for middle school, the spring season begins on Monday, May 3rd. All paperwork is due back to the middle school nurse by Wednesday, April 28th. All information and the forms are on the middle school website or can be picked up from the middle school nurse as well. So the start dates for athletics for this year are on the athletics homepage. The high school football begins on August 23rd, and all other fall sports begin on August 30th. Oh, sorry, I said for this year. This is for next year, 21-22. The middle school fall season for athletics begins on Thursday, September 9th. Toward the end of the school year, more information will be posted on the website when paperwork will need to be submitted. And we want to give a congrats to the following high school winter teams because they were recognized as New York State Scholar Athlete teams. We have boys varsity winter track, girls varsity winter track, girls varsity volleyball, boys varsity bowling, and girls varsity bowling. To qualify to be a New York State Scholar Athlete team, 75% of the roster needs to maintain a grade point average of 90% or higher. We also want to give a congrats to the high school athletic department because they were also recognized by the New York State Public High School Athletic Association's Stay in the Game program. The Stay in the Game program was created to recognize schools that complete the entire school year, 2019 to the 2020 school year, without a disqualification penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct for a player and or coach at all levels of competition. And that is it.
Thank you, Isabella. You can go study for whatever test you might have tomorrow. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
You well.
All right, we're gonna move. I just want to check and make sure no PTA or SEPTA jumped in here that I can see. So we're gonna move on to superintendent's report. Mr. Raymond.
Good evening. Thank you. Following the US CDC lead, the State Department of Health has issued a new version of school guidance that permits students to be a little 3 feet apart from each other with certain exceptions. Also, barriers, and live here a little bit, which we did not buy, are no longer recommended, consistent with a March 19th update by the CDC. School boards must solicit public comment prior to making any change to reduce physical distancing to less than 6 feet between students during academic instruction. The process must include opportunities for feedback from parents, community members, teachers, staff, and local departments of health. This meeting must be held before any change to physical distancing in schools can be made. Gather input at a Board of Ed meeting on April 20th. We'll be meeting with the staff as well. Putting a schedule out for that for next week. Today, we put out a survey on the website and also out on social media. It will be open through Friday of this week. Also be sending a letter home later this week to hybrid and remote parents to find out what their interest level is returning to school. As it currently stands, it's not that promising with regards to the secondary plant and the return to full. So logistically, it's going to be a very difficult process to cohort students the way the state is suggesting without really recreating the master schedule. At this point, students are locked into their schedules. We have 2 cohorts in A and a B cohort, but that's not really what they mean by cohort. They want smaller groups of kids walking around together. But we will continue to look at that and have more information on it later this week. Also this week, let's see, the UPC or pre-K. Let's talk a little bit about that. Pre-K has always been a goal of ours and a goal of the Board of Education, as we all know, for some time. The opportunity finally presented itself when we began the bond work. We're about to begin Project C, and this project will be creating pre-K classrooms right here at Chestnut Street. Last week, we learned a little bit about the UPK initiative the state created. We are slated to receive approximately $280,000. As for each legislator we spoke to thus far, no details have been finalized. Until we receive clear guidance, we will take a wait-and-see approach. We are thankful to be included in this initial push for UPK. It's also important to note that, for example, the district must share at least 10% of these funds with other licensed pre-K providers. And these funds would also be reduced if our program were to run for less than a full year, which is likely to happen. Another big initiative, something from both the federal and state government that came down this week or the past couple of weeks, has been the federal aid. We were slated to receive approximately in total over $3 million, $1 million from the first act, $2 million from this most recent act, which Mr. Press is going to get into in a few moments. But this funding is a one-time allocation with an allowable use over multiple years. Use of the funding is generally flexible, while at least 20% of the ARP Act, which is the most recent, must be used specifically to address learning loss issues among students. The state budget deems the funding grant and aid. That's very important to keep in mind. This addresses potential complications with voter-approved state budget amounts. It directs the state controller's office to require the funds be recorded by the school districts in their special aid fund and not the general fund. Based on this analysis, these funds would not be included as revenue in the general fund budget. This is the budget in which the voters vote. We are, however, including the increase in the district's foundation aid as a source of revenue in next year's budget. As we all know, last year we went out with a 0% tax levy. We are fortunate to receive this grant and aid money to support our students in the district.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to have Mr. Press just do one more quick report on our budget for the 21-22 school year. Later tonight, we're going to adopt the budget that he's discussing.
Sure. Yeah. I didn't get the memo that this was going to be quick, which is very difficult for me when I'm writing and speaking, but that was my best.
Did I say quick?
You did.
No, sorry. Old type presentation
Uh,
right here.
You guys know me by now. Just- Okay, excellent. All right, so round 3 of budget presentations. Thank you all for being here, allowing me to present the budget. Some interesting and I guess exciting action going on at the state over the last week or so, some of which we will talk about tonight. So Mr. Riemann kind of went through most of this, the information on this slide, so I won't get into too much detail, other than to say, we are starting the construction on the pre-K spaces. We've awarded the bids already, and the work is scheduled to begin in May. The contractors have already been in scoping out the space. And in terms of our allocation of aid, there is a formula that the state uses, an amount per student. So we are slated, well, the total amount would fund 53 four-year-old students, but as Mr. Riemann said, we do have to share some of that, and the aid would be reduced if the program was less than a full year. In terms of the federal stimulus, these are the numbers: 1.7, just over 1.7 million from the December stimulus package, $2.1 million from the March package, the American Rescue Plan. Again, these are one-time, non-recurring allocations. So using those one-time funding sources for recurring costs is not fiscally responsible. And so we're going to look at ways that we can spend that in line with the guidance that we've received from the state. Mr. Riemann mentioned these are funds that can be spent over multiple years. with at least 20% of the ARP allocation being spent on addressing learning loss. The remainder can be spent on, there was a list of things in the guidance. I've listed some of them here, including mental health services, summer learning after school programs, facility improvements and repairs. We have started having conversations about possibly replacing the univents that have not already been replaced. That would be an effort to improve ventilation and reducing the risk of virus transmission and things of that nature. So as we get further guidance, we will share that information with the board and the community. Importantly, as Mr. Reeman said, this guidance just came out yesterday about the funds being allocated similar to grants, which are allocated through the special aid fund, not part of the general fund. The general fund is the budget, as Mr. Reeman said, that the community will vote on. Any questions about any of this so far? All right. So we are waiting further guidance from SEP, as I said. So our proposed budget, there has not been any change in the total proposed budget, 68.9 million, with the spending increases indicated here, and our tax levy is remaining at 2.11%. We'll get into that as we go through the presentation. So this slide, I wanted to just kind of share the changes in the budgeted state aid. Last time we showed the change from current year to our projection for next year. This is a comparison of what we had originally proposed for state aid based on the new state budget and the changes that were made from the executive budget to the final budget. We are slated to receive an additional $748,000 in foundation aid. Some of the other aids changed a little bit, so you can see them here. And then this the original budget that the governor had presented had a reduction from the state aid in the equal amount of that December stimulus amount that we were to receive. So that was actually taken away in the final budget. So that reduction was removed. So that results in basically an increase in the state portion of the aid. And then the federal aid was not included. It was included in the executive budget. It is no longer included in the final budget. So those kind of zero out and offset each other, with the net effect being an increase in total state aid of $725,000. And so now in terms of total revenue, here's where we're showing the $725,000 increase. All the other revenue projections have stayed the same, with the exception of appropriated fund balance, which we are proposing to reduce in an amount to offset the increase in foundation aid, with the net effect on revenue being zero. So the revenue being the same as was originally proposed. So why reduce our use of fund balance? You probably have seen and heard newspaper editorials that say, oh, this money that the schools are now receiving, they should go out with 0% tax levy increase. Well, we already did that. We did that last year, so we were ahead of the game. But I think interestingly enough, Newsday, when they choose to point out, well, Hempstead or other schools like Wyandanch, those are outliers. The increases in their foundation aid were large. Hempstead was over $20 million just in foundation aid. We were not, as you saw, we were $750,000. We're more in line with, more of the typical districts. So if you're a Hempstead, maybe you can go out with a zero, reduce your tax levy. We weren't as fortunate. We did not receive the same level of funding. So what I wanted to point out was, in the last couple of years, we've increased the use of we've increased the budgeted reserve amount that we're using. Those reserves are there to serve us in time of need, either when funding sources from the outside decrease or when our expenses increase. As you know, our expenses have increased over the last couple of years in the areas largely of transportation and special ed expenses. So we have tapped into our reserves to cover our expenses, which is what they're there for. In addition, over the last couple of years, our use of appropriated fund balance has increased just last year alone, to help support the 0% tax levy increase, we appropriated an additional $935,000 of fund balance. And again, going into, in our original budget, we budgeted for the use of 3.15 million of appropriated fund balance, taking into account the 1.3 million in additional fund balance that we had held this year to cover unexpected COVID costs, and also to cover the threatened 20% decrease or withholding of state aid that the governor had projected. So we were going to use that in the budget for next year. But increasing the use of fund balance in this way is not a long-term sustainable thing. It's like pulling money out of your savings account to fund recurring expenses. At some point, if you do not replenish your savings account, your fund balance kind of goes away, and then you're left without a source of revenue. So we are proposing to reduce our use of fund balance by the $725,000 that we are showing from the increase in foundation. Any questions?
Yeah, so last we spoke, we were getting back up to that 4%. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't I hear the state is actually, I don't know if encouraging, but not allowing people to raise the amount they're holding because of concern of COVID to like 6%? So I heard something about that. And where does this take us in those numbers?
So there's not, I've heard the conversations, and I think even in the news they had when they said we should lower taxes, the state should allow us to have a higher level of fund balance above the 4%. I haven't seen anything officially that I certainly not in the budget that was passed. So that's not official at this point in time. And using the fund balance in the way that we're doing it, appropriating the fund balance would bring us back down closer to that 4%.
Okay. So still right around 4 plus or minus in that 4%.
Yeah.
It's only a certain amount within 4. So
Okay, right. The other question? Okay. So these are our proposed expenditures. No change here. But you can, if you see the numbers are a little small, but you can see here the areas where we're showing the increase are the areas that we've talked about in our budget presentation: special ed, pupil transportation, and the debt service down toward the bottom. But again, the debt service is offset in part by additional building aid that we are receiving, or that we will be receiving for our completed bond projects. Again, just briefly here, I've mentioned it on the last slide, but our challenges to budgeting that we've been facing are increase again in transportation, special ed, and debt service. So our budget for next year includes one additional special ed teacher. This is the only addition to staffing. This is going to be to support a class of either 12 or 15, depending on need, at the high school. And now what our budget is getting us and getting our kids, new course offerings at the high school here. We're talking about a continuation of our partnership with the Syracuse University Project Advance program. We're adding the personal finance course from SUPA. Additionally, the Spanish for Native Speakers 3, which is a continuation of our program to support the Seal of Biliteracy at the high school. Some additional electives at the high school that are being offered really at the request of students. The students are polled to see what classes they may be interested in. These are among the additional courses that we will be offering for next year. Additional initiatives we've got, we're expanding our use of our rollout of the Investigations Math program to grades 4 and 5. And expanding the use of the Connected Math program into grade 8. Additional social emotional learning programs, including Habits of Mind, which we're going to be rolling out. It's a program that the administrators I mentioned, we have been studying ourselves. We read through the book this year. It's a really phenomenal program. Additional project-based learning. As the kids themselves spoke at the last presentation, they were asking for more of PBL. We are expanding the use of the PBL to fine performing and culinary arts courses, as well as phys ed and health. We're also continuing the career exploration program for our special ed students and our NYIT Smart Start Grant Program, which is in partnership with the university, with the goal to improve the expertise of teachers of grades K through 8 in computer science, engineering, and educational technologies. Some future plans here, expanding our college credit offerings so that those of our students who do continue on to college can get a little bit of a head start with some credits when they arrive, possibly graduating early and saving them and their parents a chunk of money. Looking to roll out a new science program, expanding our award-winning research program, our STEM research program, additional social emotional learning programs, looking forward to the opening of our preschool next year, and additional track and field equipment that would allow us to participate in additional track and field events, and also to host track events here, track meets in West Hempstead. And as well, we're looking to roll out new phys ed standards and the next gen science standard. And again, this is the budget will help support our new and continuing partnerships, including the ones listed here. We talked about the NYU Langone and Vision Scholar Program, which allows our kids to work alongside med students, residents, and attending physicians over at NYU Winthrop Hospital to learn about the field of medicine. Delphi University Residency Program, which has Delphi students that are pursuing an education degree coming to work and get real life experience while helping to support our teachers and our students. The New York State Peer Mentoring Program, which pairs up mentors and mentees in an effort to prevent high school dropout rates. Our diversity fair with Nessa Bosis, I think there's an event coming up this weekend, right, with the Saturday, with the goal here of increasing the diversity of the staff here in West Hempstead. Primary project in conjunction with the Children's Institute, which is a program that helps kids in grades pre-K through 3rd grade adjust to school, gain confidence, social skills, and help them focus on learning. And finally, the U.S. Department of Education Talent Search Program, which seeks to encourage the on-time completion secondary school entry into post-secondary education, and also to develop, for students to develop the knowledge and skills to build well-prepared, thoughtful, and informed, productive members of society, which is a theme that is kind of encumbered throughout the whole presentation, all the programs that we are offering. So in order to do all of that and help our students, we need to have 21st century facilities. So we've got bond projects coming up, a lot of them, including, as we mentioned, the Chestnut, the pre-K center at Chestnut, the conversion of the high school library into a 21st century media center, which we've been looking at the furniture and the designs for that space. It's really going to be incredible once it's done. It's going to be very exciting, and I hope we get people back into the building so they could see it. The kids are going to love it. We're redoing the fax room at the high school in the same way we did at the middle school. Our high school music suite is going to get a bit of a makeover with some additional storage, instrument storage there. We're going to be doing a lot of refurbishing and resurfacing of parking lots district-wide, and some additional wiring throughout the district. Additionally, these are not part of the bond project, but these are projects that have been supported by prior year budgets. Our kitchens in George Washington and Cornwall Avenue are going to get redone this summer. Those projects have also already been awarded and underway. I'm not allowed to pick colors, but mostly it's stainless steel, so you're fine. I don't have to worry too much about that. The high school auditorium is also going to get itself a nice refresh. The ceiling will get redone, we'll get new lighting, and the projection booth will be converted into an official sound and lighting booth. Additionally, as part of the Smart Schools Bond Act, we'll be getting new security cameras district-wide and new door locks as well. So a lot of stuff going on planned for this summer. See, I got my construction hard hat ready to go and get back into the buildings. I won't do any of the work, don't worry about it, so you won't have to worry about the quality of the work. But all of this in an effort to really, make over our spaces for our kids to turn this into a 21st century learning space. Couple of additional dates coming up. Our budget hearing Tuesday, April 27th. Right now, it looks like we're going to have that at the middle school cafeteria. More information on that will be coming. And then the budget vote, again, May 11th, and the middle school gym. Again, both of these dates are moved up 1 week. So they're different than what's in the printed calendar that people may have hanging on their walls or on their refrigerators. So just wanted to point that. All right. That quick enough? Too long? Any
All good,
questions?
Joel, all good.
Perfect.
We have questions from the board. Or to anything that Joel just presented. Just because we were talking about, so I just want you to address it. I don't know if it was addressed before, because I think I might have zoned out. The UPK funds that are not part of our budget that may or may not be coming down from the state, we have to share that money.
Yes.
So it's, so it did
10%.
say 10% of all pre-K units. Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm
Mhm.
telling you, I think I zoned right out. Okay, so there's no questions from, the board.
Well, this,
So-
we didn't mention the gym.
That's right, in the bond work that's being done in Project C also includes the middle school gym expansion, which we've all been waiting for a very long time. My grandchildren might see that. Yeah. But, and also, very exciting for those of us that have bricks waiting. Once the paving is complete, we can actually install the brick walk. We had, if everybody remembers, we had started, a memorial brick walk at the high school for the new field. But because we were paving and doing stuff in the back, we didn't want the large equipment to damage the brick walk, so we held back until the paving was being done. So now the paving is being done over the summer. The brick walk will also be installed. So if you haven't bought your brick yet, feel free to sign on and buy your brick. Baronski, hurry up and sign on and buy your brick. I will put out information, and Mr. Raymond will put the information back up on the website again, and back out on social media, advising everybody that bricks are still for sale and will be ongoing, throughout the course of the brick walk, because there's about 1,600, I think John Francis told us 1,600 bricks to be purchased eventually, to eventually be filled. And obviously we're not starting with 1,600 bricks. So it will be ongoing, I'm sure, long before I'm not here. Vinny will still be here though. So I know. Before we move on to the period for district residents to speak, I do see two people from PTA and or PTSA PTA and or SEPTA. I'm assuming the Kerry that's on the screen is Kerry Mummondy. Do you have a report, Kerry? And maybe you're not Kerry Mummondy, but I'm gonna go with no. And maybe I'm missing it. Is there anybody on from PTA?
Yeah, Kathleen Macchia, I'm here. I'm sorry, I signed on late.
That's okay.
Not too much to report, just we're looking for nominations for next year's PTA board, and we're working on finalizing the dates for spring photos. And that's all we have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've now reached the period for district residents, Island Park residents, and or employees of the district to address the board. This individual will be limited to 3 minutes of non-confidential agenda items with an overall maximum of 20 minutes. If you have a question, if you could type in the chat that you have a question, I'll call on you and ask you to unmute. Okay. Let me give it one more second and then I'm gonna move on. All right, so at this time, we have another section at the end for questions. So at this time, I need a motion to move docket 0-294 through 0-302. Second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. And a motion to move docket 0-303 through 0-327.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion's passed. And a motion to move from old business 0-278.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. We have no new business. And no board privilege of the floor, because I just took it when I was talking about the brick wall. Future meeting dates, again, as Mr. Press said, and as Mr. Reaman said earlier, we will be meeting next Tuesday, which is the 20th. Yes, the 20th, for the purposes of having a public meeting in regard to the possibilities of bringing children back or not bringing children back, but we need to get public participation in that conversation. So we will be meeting at 7:30. There will be a link on the website. I'm going to say right now that that meeting is still going to be at Chestnut Street and it will be a Zoom meeting, but that may or may not change. And we will keep everybody posted on that. We'll put it on the website. We may move it to the middle school if we feel that people want to be present for that meeting. The Board of Ed budget hearing is going to be April 27th at 7:30 p.m. It will still be Zoomed or WebEx or whatever we're doing. But we will be meeting in the middle school cafeteria in case people want to attend that meeting. Just to give us a little bit more space. And then on May 11th, just another reminder, we're going to continue to beat this drum. The budget vote is May 11th, not May 18th, in the middle school auditorium, middle school gymnasium. So hopefully we're going to have no rain that day. And the rest of the meeting, the future meeting dates are on the agenda that you can read on the website. We've now reached the period for district residents, Island Park residents, and or employees of the district, again, to address the board. This individual will be limited to 3 minutes of non-confidential agenda items with an overall maximum of 20 minutes if needed. Again, if you have a question, please type in the chat box that you have a question and I'll call on you and ask you to unmute. Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn into executive session for advice of counsel and to discuss personnel.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, motion passes. See you all back here next Tuesday at 7:30. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank